Students, this is Unit 1, the Alphabet and Grammar of Geometry, Lesson 1.2, the Geometry Alphabet. For this lesson, you should be right here. Don't forget the date, time, and location that you are watching this, as well as a parent or guardian sign-off. Students, I beg you, focused attention equals faster work and increased comprehension. Do not attempt to multitask while doing this video. Please stay focused. Now, for your normal preview notes, there's basically two parts. There's always what's called a review section, which is reviewing a short review of prior material. And then there is what's called the preview section, which is a preview of material we're going to be working with in the next class. Review, preview. So for the review section, you're going to work through this page in pencil. Then you're going to get a red pen and you're going to correct your work. So right now, grab a pencil. You may not use a calculator. I'd like you to work through this page in pencil, pause the video, restart when you're done. Pause the video. Welcome back. Students, did you actually pause or are you about just to copy? If you're copying right now, go back, pause the video, actually do the work. Okay, so you should have the work done in front of you in pencil. You should be grabbing your red pen now and correcting. So I'm just going to very quickly do this by hand so you can see how it can get done by hand. Okay, that's going to be, I'm going to talk through it. That's 48, that's 8, carry the 4. 3 times 4 is 24, plus 4, that's 28, carry the 2. 8 times 9 is 72, plus 2, that's 74. I'm going to cross those out, going to the next one. Add a 0. 5 times 6 is 30. Carry the 3. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 3 is 18. Carry the 1. 5 times 9 is 45. Plus the 1 is 46. That's 8. 8. 12. Carry the 1. That's 14. Carry the 1. 5. You should have gotten 54,288. Down here, step number 1, always circle the outside and distribute. That should be negative 2x minus 2. Circle that negative sign and distribute. That's going to be negative 8 plus 5x. That's the right-hand side. The left-hand side, I'm going to collect like terms. 5x and minus 4. Right-hand side, I'm going to collect like terms. Negative 2x plus 5x, that's 3x. And that's going to be negative 10 equals 5x minus 4. Collect before you cancel. We've collected. Now we can cancel. We're going to go minus 3x, minus 3x. That cancels. This becomes 2x. We're going to go plus 4, plus 4. That cancels. Equals negative 10 plus 4. That's negative 6. Now we're going to divide out. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. And x equals negative 3. If you really wanted to check your work, you can plug it in and make sure it works. If it's on a test, I would definitely do that. There's your review, folks. If you got this correct, you should be doing big smileys, stars. I'm such a brilliant young person. If any of it is incorrect, I expect you to redo the problem in the margin, spotting your error. Preview. In our next lesson, we're going to be talking about something called the geometry alphabet. Your key terms include point, line segment, ray, angle, plane, and the concept of dimensions. Make sure you have this equipment on hand. You're going to need a straight edge. If you haven't purchased an actual ruler, you can use the postcard I provided the first day of class. Of course, a pencil, a red pen handy, and some sort of colors. Your quad pen is sufficient. When you learn a language, usually the first thing you learn in reading and writing that language are letters. In English, we have 26 letters to work with to make our words. In geometry, we only have 5 letters. But before we go into those 5 letters that constitute the geometric alphabet, we first have to talk about dimensions. We live in a world of 3 dimensions. That's why we enjoy 3D movies. They look more like the world that we exist in. Length, width, height. Sometimes the 4th dimension is considered time. Usually in physics and astronomy, you're going to be talking about dimension as a time. Now, in this physical desk here, this table here, that little point, let's say where the corner meet, that's called a point. That has no dimensions. It has no length, no width, no height. It just is a position. If I were to trace the edge here, and I would get myself a line segment, that would be considered the 1st dimension. So the 1st dimension is only length. Just length. Think of it as string, a segment or a line. Now, if I were to take this tabletop and find the area of the tabletop, an area, think of it as if you were painting the top of this tabletop in blue. That tabletop area is something that has length and width. It has length and width. Think of it as a tabletop. That's what we consider area. That is the 2nd dimension. Now, if I wanted to basically refer to the physicality of the entire table, this entire table exists in a world that is length, width, and of course the addition of height. It has length, it has width, and it has height. That is the 3rd dimension. So the 1st dimension is only length. The 2nd dimension is things that have length and width. That would be area. And of course the 3rd dimension are things that have length, width, and height. You would commonly visualize this, the beginnings of a cube. Length, width, and height. That's the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd dimension. We need to know these dimensions because our geometric alphabet exists in these dimensions. Ready? Here is our geometric alphabet. Point, line, segment, ray, plane, and angle. Now I just said 6 words and I told you that there's only 5 letters. Line and segment are like subsets of each other, so they constitute as 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are our geometric alphabets. Ready? Point is the first one. A point is a point. Ta-da! There's a point. Now in geometry, we refer to all points with capital letters. So if that dot, whenever there is a capital letter, the symbol for a point is a capital letter. So if I want to symbolize this point, I would simply say A, point A. Remember, you must use a capital letter for all points, capital letter. Now a point has no length, no width, no height. So a point has 0 dimensions. Here is a line. I'm going to be very specific. A line must have arrows going either way, not to be confused with a segment, which is a piece of a line. Now in art class, that segment could be viewed as a line, and you could use those almost interchangeably, but in geometry they mean very specific thing. A line goes on forever in both directions. A segment has endpoints. A segment is a piece of a line. So I'm going to mark these two kind of simultaneously. Watch very carefully. We're going to go ahead and we're going to just put P and Q right there. That's still a line. And then this is segment. Looks like the same thing. Watch this notation very carefully. Okay? So here we have a line PQ and here we have a segment PQ. Watch this symbology here. I could call this line referring, meaning going on forever in both directions. My symbol for it, I can use capital PQ, watch, with a little baby line above it. Or I can do QP with a little baby line above it. Okay, both ways would work. There's a third way I can name a line. You can use a lowercase letter at either of the arrow points. A lowercase letter, and usually use italics or cursive. So for example, I could call this line J, and you use an italics or cursive letter, lowercase, because it's not a point, and I could call this line J. Now, this segment is a piece of a line. If I have a line like this, and I simply take a piece of it, that is a segment. The symbol I would use for this segment, watch the difference here, would be PQ, the segment. Notice no arrows. I could also go the other way, QP, the segment. Those are the only two options here. The only two options. Now if I were to add a third point here and add R, watch very carefully. PQ would refer to the segment from here to here. If I were to go like this, QR, the segment, that piece would only refer from here to there because it's segments, so it's limited, it's not a line. So that's the symbols we're using with a segment and a line. Remember, with a line, remember the remember column, that you can use the cursive line and a cursive notation, and both lines and segments have one dimension, which is only length. Okay, so remember those headings, diagram, symbol, don't forget dimensions. Okay, array is also a portion of a line, but it's, so if you start with a line, let's say I have my endpoints PQ, and I just erase one of the directions here, that would be array. Okay, so I'm going to draw this ray both directions just so you can see it can go. I start, let's say my endpoint is Q, and I go on forever towards P, or I can go like this, my endpoint is Q, I go on forever P. That's the same ray, just turned around. Watch this symbology very carefully. Be very careful with this. Okay? I use, there's only one name to name either of these various rays. It's the same ray, just turned around. Watch very carefully. Q, P, the ray. This is correct. That's correct. Ta-da! That is correct. What I'm about to write, the next two, is incorrect. I'm going to write it down, and I'm just going to be quiet for about 10 seconds, and I want you to try to figure out why would this be incorrect? Okay, take a close look here. Both of the ones in red are incorrect. Let me give a little bit of space so your eyeballs don't get confused here. Okay, both of the reds are incorrect. I'm going to be quiet for 10 seconds. I want you to try to analyze why are those incorrect. Okay, when naming rays, the first thing that's very important, the end point. Regardless of the direction it goes, the end point is always the first letter. Okay, right here, our end point is Q, but we start with P. That's why that one did not work. You're like, well, what about this one? When we write the symbol for rays, we always put the endpoint letter first, then the arrow point, and we always draw that ray to the right. That's just the symbology. We always draw it to the right. We never draw it to the left. Even if the physical ray is turned to the left, the symbol for the ray, this is the correct symbol. We never write the symbol for the ray to the left. So that's why those two are incorrect. So just remember, when you do a ray, you always use the 2 points. You always do the little arrow going to the right, even if the original ray goes to the left. And this is always the end point. The first letter is always the end point. A ray just has length, therefore it is only also one dimension. So a line, a segment, and a ray all are in the first dimension. Plane and angle are in the second dimension. Now, a plane is what you would consider like the tabletop. All right, so we're going to kind of first draw it here on the tabletop. And now I'd like you to redraw it kind of in a 3D tilted form. Okay, watch my letters here. When we name planes, we name first using the corners, and you always name them going either clockwise or counterclockwise. So A, B, I'm going clockwise, C, D. Okay, notice the order I went. A, B, C, D. That's clockwise. Now I could have easily also named it going this way. Doesn't really matter where you start the A, but I could go counterclockwise and go like this. Counterclockwise, A, count B. Notice I'm going counterclockwise, C, D. Okay, but you never name planes using a zigzag method. I would never name a plane like this. See the zigzag, A, B, and then zigzag, C, D. What I just did was wrong. That's called the zigzag method. You always name going clockwise or counterclockwise. It's really important you understand the terminology here because you're going to be required to draw this stuff. Now, there's several ways I can name this plane. I name it using the letters. As long as I go clockwise or counterclockwise, it's fine. So I could call this plane right here if I wanted to. If I put my letters on there, I can call it plane ABCD. As As long as I go clockwise or counterclockwise, I could even mix it up. I can go like this if I want. Watch carefully. Watch. I'm going to start at C. I'm going to go counterclockwise. C, D, A, B. That's fine too. Let's see here. I could go like this. I could start at D if I want, and I can go clockwise. D, A, B, C. What I'm about to show you is incorrect. I'm going to write it down and then we're going to cross it out. What would not be acceptable would be this. Why don't you physically trace with me so you can see what's not acceptable? I cannot call it this. Plane AB, DC. You see what I did there? Plane AB, DC. That's the zigzag. You cannot name using a zigzag, so that would be incorrect. Now, there's a shortcut for naming planes. You can use a cursive capital letter, italics capital letter in the upper right-hand corner, and that would name the entire plane. So I could, in the upper right-hand corner here, make an italics M, or a cursive M, however you want to consider it. And I could call this just straight up plane. I just realized I wrote plan here. Sorry about that. There's plane. There's an E there. There's an E there. I could call this plane M. Notice that's a cursive letter, and that's in the upper right-hand corner. That is not a point. That's why it's cursive, or italics. That represents it's just naming the entire plane. A plane is 2 dimensions. It has both length and width. In other words, it has area. You really want colors for the next one. I have this color-coded for a reason, so I'd like you to go ahead and get your quad pen out, or colors if you have them, because I'm going to color code this. Angles are made up of 2 rays. Just in general, angles, let me show you. You have an end point and a ray going one direction, and an end point and a ray going another direction, connected at a uncommon end point. So 2 rays stuck with a common endpoint, that is called an angle. 2 rays with a common endpoint is called an angle. We name angles for now with 3 letters. It's very important when you name angles, or when angles are given to you, always trace and sweep. Trace and sweep all angles. Trace and sweep all angles. Let me show you what I mean by that. Okay? Using blue if you have it. We're going to trace and sweep angle A, C, D. Remember dot to dot as a kid? We're literally going to go dot to dot in that exact order. A, C, D. Watch. A, start at A, go to C, go to D, trace, and sweep. So angle ACD refers to this angle right there. Notice the central letter is the hinge of the angle, or the elbow if you think of that as an arm with an elbow. Let's trace and sweep F, C, E. So start at F, go to C, end at E, stop right there, and sweep. So angle F, CE refers to this angle right up here. Again, notice the middle letter is the elbow of the angle. We're going to trace and sweep angle DAB. Ready? In that exact order. D, A, B. Stop. Trace and sweep. So angle DAB is referring to this angle right here. Notice once again, the middle letter is A, therefore the hinge of that angle is A. Last one, angle DGE. Ready? Angle D, start at D, go to G, go to E. Stop, sweep. You always sweep at that middle letter, which is the vertex. Slang, I'll call it the hinge. So angle DGE is this angle right here in black. We always use 3 letters with angles, and you always trace and sweep the angles. Now comes the fun part. We're going to start taking the geometry alphabet and making geometry sentences. Now, what are geometry sentences? They are pictures, because geometry is all about the pictures, diagrams. I'm going to teach you how to read, because guess what? Most of you do not read properly when it comes to a math class. I'm going to be very, very strict about this. A word about how to read in this math class. When you read in this math class, you are not simply going to look at stuff with your eyeballs. That is not reading. This is the kind of reading. You will read all problems using 3 body parts, and you will read 3 times. You will read all problems using 3 body parts, reading 3 times. 3 body parts, 3 times. If you learn this singular skill on how to read properly in this class, in this second lesson, it will enormously improve your comprehension over the next 9 months in this class. This is what I mean by reading with 3 body parts 3 times. Reading with 3 body parts means you're going to put your finger physically on the paper as you read. You will read, of course, with your eyeballs looking at the paper, and your lips will move at the same time. That is that's 3 body parts right there. Finger on the paper, eyes on the page, lips moving, saying the words. 3 times that you do that, reading first time. Reading the second time, you go back and you filter by underlining or highlighting the key words. Number 3, after filtering, you cross out the key parts as you account for the information after drawing and labeling. 3 body parts, 3 times. I'm going to model this for you. I'm going to do 2 problems with you, and then you're going to try 1 on your own. We're almost done. Ready? 3 body parts 3 times. Step 1, ready? You're going to put your finger right there. Put your finger by the word draw. As I read, and as you see this finger move, I want your finger moving, and I want your lips moving and reading. No cheating. I want you to read aloud. As I read aloud. Put your finger right there. Ready? Finger, physically, not your pencil. Finger, folks. I'm serious about the finger on the paper. You will understand why in about 5 days. I'm going to give you the actual neurology on why putting your physical finger on the paper improves your comprehension. I'm not going to explain that now. That's to be in the future. Put your finger right there. Ready? Read aloud with me. Draw a line, PR, with a point Q between points P and R. Then draw a ray, PT, and draw a ray QM. Trace and sweep angle TPR. That was your first pass. Your second pass, we're going to read again and we're going to underline or highlight keywords. First, we have a line PR. The fact that it's a line is important. With the point Q, there's your second key piece. And it's between points P and R. Then we're going to draw a ray PT. And we're going to draw another ray QM. And we're going to trace and sweep angle TPR. That's called filtering. Now, pass 3. We cross stuff out as we account for it. So we're going to draw a line PR. So here's a line, PR. Remember, you're using capital letters, 2 arrows. It doesn't matter whether P is to the right and R is to the left. In fact, just to mess with your brain, I'm going to put the P over here and the R over here because the order does not matter there. Right, left, right. Boom. With the point Q and Q's between. Now, between does not mean middle, and that's super important. Between does not mean middle. Between just means between. In fact, never put anything in the exact middle unless I tell you it's in the exact middle. So because Q is not the exact middle, I'm going to offset it a bit, just so there's no confusion. Point Q. And point Q is between P and R, which it is. Notice now I cross that out. Cross stuff out as you account for it. Next, we're going to draw a ray PT. Now, whoa, wait a minute. I got a P here, but where on earth did that T come from? Guess what? You're adding another point. Watch this notation. Notice P is first. That means P is an endpoint. So P is your endpoint. Doesn't matter which way the T goes here. I didn't specify. So T and R, that's a ray, so only one arrow. Cross it out. Draw a ray QM. Again, Q is the end point. M is some other random point. It doesn't matter whether M goes this way, or this way. All three. I didn't specify which direction. Q is the end point, so my ray goes like this. Last but not least, we're going to trace and sweep TPR. Angle TPR. Ready? Put your pencil on T, go to P, go to R, trace and sweep at the elbow. Cross it out. Congratulations, you just demonstrated what it means to read with 3 body parts 3 times. I know this seems tedious, but if you follow this habit, it will greatly enhance your comprehension. Let's demonstrate this one more time, and then we'll take the training wheels off. You read with 3 body parts 3 times. Okay? Read, filter, cross out. Step number 1, put your finger right there at the word on. Physical, finger. See, I even have a little finger there. We're going to read aloud. Your lips should move and words should come out of your lips as you read with your physical finger on the paper, friends. Physical finger on the paper. Ready? Read. On a plane WXYZ, draw a segment EF on plane WXYZ, intersecting a line BC at point H. Trace and sweep angle BHE. Okay, that was pass number 1. Pass number 2, we're going to filter. Okay? Filter. We're underlining our keywords here. We have a plane, WXYZ. We have to make sure we get that correct. And then we have a segment on the plane, WXYZ, intersecting a line, BC, and we're intersecting at a point, H. And it's a point. That's important. Finally, we're going to trace and sweep the angle BHE. Okay, that was pass number 2. Pass number 3, that was filter. Now we read and we cross things out as we account for it carefully. First, we're going to draw a plane WXYZ. So I'm going to draw like a tabletop to represent 3 dimensions. Does not matter where that W starts. What does matter is that you label it either going clockwise or counterclockwise. No Z labeling. So you would never go like this, WXZ label YZ. Do you see what I just did? Kind of a Z labeling. That would be incorrect. So I start with my plane, WXYZ. Put the W there. I'm going to go clockwise, X, Y, and Z. Now I've got myself a plane. Now I have a segment, EF. So EF, E's capital, F's capital, endpoints, EF. No arrows because it's a segment. And it's on the plane WXYZ. Cross it out. I accounted for that. It's intersecting a line BC. So EF, the segment, is cutting through a line, 2 arrows, B, C, and it's intersecting at a point, H. H is a capital letter. Trace and sweep, B, H, E. So B, H, E. Trace and sweep. Reading with 3 body parts 3 times. Okay, this last page, I want you to practice reading 3 body parts 3 times. Attempt to do this on your own. Pause the video and restart when you're done. Pause the video. Okay, let's see how you did here. It says draw a plane Q. Notice that Q is technically it's italics. So I'm going to start with the plane, and that Q should be italics in the upper hand corner, and that's not a point. That names the whole plane. With a line AB, and it's a line, so it doesn't matter which way the line tilts, but it is a line, must have two letters and 2 capitals, AB. Draw a segment JK. It's a segment, JK, intersecting AB. So JK intersecting AB at a point R. And we're going to trace and sweep KRB. So KRB, trace and sweep. Now, your entire diagram could be tilted another direction, but the key things here is that Q should be in the upper right-hand corner. Your line should have arrows with capital letters. Your segment should have endpoints with capital letters. And your angle, KRB, should be the one where it's KRB and R is the hinge of that angle. What I recommend you do is, if you got this correct, star. If you got some aspect incorrect, make a little note. Now take 2 minutes and go back through your previous pages and just kind of ask yourself, what did you learn on this page? What did you learn on this page? What did you learn on this page? Just take 2 minutes and kind of recap each page, just briefly, a total of 2 minutes. Not 2 minutes each, just 2 minutes total, and recap every single page. What is it was the main idea? That will increase both your retention and your comprehension.